In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to make a dust bath for your chickens. If you're new to chickens, you might not know this, but chickens need to take a dust bath in order to stay healthy and mite-free. The natural behavior that they're going to do on their own, if you don't provide a spot for them to take a dust bath, you're going to see them making little holes in your yard or in their enclosure and rolling around in that whenever it's dry. If you make them a place to have a dust bath, they're less likely to make little divots in your yard, which is good. And if you make them their own dust bath, you can have control over it and add some things to it that'll be beneficial to them and make them less likely to contract mites or other pests. There are a lot of little bugs like fleas, ticks, mites that would love to live on your chicken. So I'm going to teach you a very quick, simple, and fairly cheap way to make sure that your birds stay protected. So first things first, you're going to need a large rubber pan. You can get it from your local feed store. You can see this one looks a little bit loved and used because they use it every day. And it's time to refill it with some new ingredients, so I figured I'd show you what I do. I like to hang an umbrella over it so that way it stays dry. The old umbrella that I had hanging up there was starting to look a little bit rough after the storms that we had this year. So I'm finally replacing that one, and I got this nice sunflower one. I'm going to use zip ties to secure it in place, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so I zip tied it into place. Now we're going to fill up the rubber pan. So you're going to want to get an all-purpose sand. Don't get anything that has any dyes or colors or anything fake added to it. You can get this at your local feed store. And if for some reason yours doesn't have this, you can usually find it at like Lowe's or Home Depot, somewhere like that. So I use this as the base, and you can also mix in some dry topsoil as well if you wanted to. So go ahead and add just a few inches of that. Spread it out, nice and even. Next, we're going to add our ingredients for pest control. So the first one we're going to use is diatomaceous earth, and this is the one that I use with it all the time consistently. The next one we're going to use is poultry dust, and this one I just add occasionally. You can see the active ingredient there. This stuff is very strong. It works really well against mites. But I try to stay as natural as possible, so I don't mix this in all the time. Use it more so in the summer or when the seasons are changing, especially in the beginning of spring when all the wild birds are returning to the yard. So diatomaceous earth is a little bit controversial. I'm going to put a link to one of my recent videos in the description below where I go into more detail about the pros and the cons of this product, so check that out if you want to learn more about it or if you're unsure about it. I have personally had great success with this method. I've never had a mite issue in the almost 5 years that I've had poultry. But like I said in my other video, if you're not comfortable using something, don't do it. Do your own research, talk to your vet, and see what you can do. But the bottom line is it's our responsibility to keep these animals healthy, and we cannot have them getting mites. That's not cool, and once they get them, they spread like crazy, and it's really, really hard to get back under control. So that's something to keep in mind if you're apprehensive about this. It is a fully natural product, but it is a very fine powder, so I tell people that when you're applying it, just make sure you don't accidentally breathe it in. Use it in wide open spaces. And then this stuff you really don't want to breathe in or get into your eyes. Anytime you're using something, especially with a strong ingredient, make sure you read the labels first and use it according to the directions on the label. Feel free to pause this if you want to read more. If you are applying this loose, it says to do it 1 pound per 40 square feet. Since I'm putting this in their dust bath, I just do a very small sprinkle. You don't want to use this near their feed, near their water. Don't use it around children. You got to be responsible with this. Now, I know that makes it sound scary. It's really not. But I always do like to put those little disclaimers out there because if you're learning something from my channel, I want to make sure that you're doing it responsibly. Because I care about you guys and I care about your birds. But it's really not a scary thing. Just make sure you read labels and take the time to do things appropriately. And that's something that you can apply directly to your birds or their enclosure. But like I said, there's different rates on there depending on how you're using it. So make sure you read that first. Make sure you do it appropriately. You can use the poultry dust to treat mites if you already see them, but I use it as a preventative. Because like I said, this mix has been very, very successful for me. So like I said, I don't use poultry dust every single time I mix up a fresh batch of this, mainly just in the summer or when the seasons are changing. And it's fall, the seasons are changing, and a lot of the wild birds are getting into huge groups so they can get ready to migrate. So I don't want my birds catching anything from them. So we're going to add this. If you're worried about it, feel free to put on protective eyewear or even a mask or a respirator. And that's not just when you're dealing with this stuff. Think about your lung health. You don't want to breathe in anything that's really fine and powdery. And if you're wondering like, oh, well, what about the birds? Check out that video that I put the link to in the description because I go into detail about that and how it affects us a little bit differently because of our different lifespans and how they're naturally dusty creatures anyway, and they're going to take a dust bath whether you make them one or not. They will find a way because this is their natural instinct. It's the way God made them. This is how they keep themselves clean. They will seek out any dry, dusty area and roll around in it. They are built differently than us, and I know it's hard not to give human characteristics to your pets, but you do have to keep in mind that they're a different species, so they're going to have different care than us. All right, I let that settle. So now I'm going to add a little shake of this. But yeah, you can also add some pet-safe decorations around your area too. I give them this little disco ball near their bath. They like to peck at it and look at their reflection on there. It's actually for parakeets, so you can find it in the pet section of the store. But back on topic here, a couple little shakes. Nothing crazy. And now I'm going to get a stick to stir it with. Now we have a dust bath ready for the chickens. Does anyone want to come demonstrate it? Thanks for the demonstration, Snapdragon. Snapdragon's one of my OG chickens. She's an Easter egger. She lays a green egg.